Hello, everybody. So I have the honor of interviewing Jess Taylor today, and we're going to go through her story, just like every other episode for this series. We're roughly going to be following the hero's journey of people's lives, and really going through like their journey, not just kind of where they're at now with what they've created in their business, but the journey of what happened for them to get there, how they loved and supported themselves through some of the hardest, toughest moments of life, through dark nights of the soul moments, while also maybe having children like how Jess and I do, or navigating a business and like going through the transformation of that. So that's the intention for this series. Jess, do you want to just introduce yourself and just tell people a little bit about your story before we get started?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me. My name is Jess Taylor. I own Conjured Glow Coaching, and I started the business to help. My initial goal was to help women who have been through similar trauma as me, because I feel
Yeah.
like when I was getting divorced, I didn't have anybody. I felt like I didn't have anybody. And I finally hit rock bottom, called my best friend who I hadn't talked to in a year. And she's like, I got you. You and the kids can come stay here as long as possible. And that was that safe and loving space that I needed to feel okay enough to leave. And like she saved my life. And that just kind of began this cracking open of my self-acceptance, my self-respect, because all that has to come before self-love, right? You don't immediately jump into love. Which is a common misconception. It's not just, anyway, we'll get into that. But but yeah, that's my mission on this earth, is to create be a safe space and also create safe spaces. So that's why, I have a project called the Medusa Project, where you can fill out a Google form and just write a letter to your abuser, completely anonymous. You don't have to include your email or anything like that if you don't want to. And every 50 letters I get, I'm going to publish it, and covering the publishing cost. And then every proceed from the sale of these letters goes towards the building of Medusa House, which is going to be a fully inclusive, safe space with hopefully, drum circles, workshops, craft fairs, those kinds of things, for the community, family friendly things. And then also eventually a safe house, that families can rotate out of and get the community resources they need to get on their feet. Because that was one of the hardest things once I was away, was trying to just land somewhere.
To know. I feel like I want to actually start in the beginning, because I feel like there's so many things that I want to ask you about that. But I guess I just want to kind of get a feel for like your earlier years, like your childhood, because I think it's important to just know like how people became like who they became. What was their life like growing up?
Yeah, so I was born in Central Virginia, and I'm 38, so I'm an 80s baby and 90s kid. And I grew up, my mom actually had me at 16. So we lived with my grandparents for a long time, and in and out of her relationships, kind of unfortunately, and she's probably gonna not like this if she listens to this, but dragging me with her through these relationships.
What was that like for you? Like, what kind of relationships were you exposed to as a kid?
There was, physical abuse, mental abuse, lots of moving around. I went to 5 elementary schools.
Wow.
So in the 6 years I was in elementary school. So there was just a lot of chaos, And unfortunately that was they're good memories, but you work through to remember. The good memories are so hard to remember when you have so much chaos on the other side. So
I think it's interesting just to see like the energy that people were foraged in, because I think that it really, like, I think I noticed that when people experience a lot of contrast when they're young, that it really inspires them to maybe be more intentional, or to almost like have this capacity for like greater joy. I don't know if you feel that way. Do you feel like even among like a lot of the darkness that you've walked through in your life, do you feel like that has been had like maybe an opposite gift for you that maybe you weren't aware of at one point?
Yeah, I think, in the moment, you're like, why is this happening to me? Right?
Yeah.
Why is it happening to me? And
Yes.
then I finally had this switch of perspective where it was like, no, no, no. Things are happening around me and I control my response. And that takes a lot of training. That's not something that happens overnight. And that's not something that when you come from that type of childhood that you're even taught, right?
Hmm.
Because you're so used to and comfortable in chaotic energy that
Yeah.
when something feels is actually safe for you, healthy for you,
Yeah.
it's dangerous, right?
It
It's
doesn't feel, it feels out of your
you
comfort
repel it.
zone. Yeah. That there's
Yeah.
kind of like how people say the devil, for like lack of a better term, that there's something that feels like home to people if they've grown
Yeah.
up with chaos. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's
So
hard too. It's like, I think some of these things I didn't learn. It seems like with TikTok, people are learning this a lot younger. Like I feel like my
yes.
sister that's like 24, like that generation is learning so much more, but I feel like it's kind of common. Like I'm 40, you said you're 38. I feel like a lot of our generation has really been in this like healing process of like
We're
bringing
the
back
we're
in,
the curse breakers. We are
yeah,
the
bringing the
generation, the
inner
millennials
child,
are the curse breakers, right?
doing
Like
the
we're
shadow work. Yeah.
yep. Yeah, we're underappreciated. We're right? Everybody still thinks we're kids, those kinds of things. But yeah, we're the ones. And it's so funny you say that because, um, I have friends that are a little bit older than me or a little bit younger than me, and they do not relate to the challenges of the kids that grew up in like the mid
Yeah.
80s and early 90s, like around our age. It's like a,
Yeah.
4 to 6 year span I'm finding of like
Yeah.
you went through some crap, and now you're coming out and the other side and creating all these beautiful things. I have so many beautiful creators that like have entered my circle since I started this journey.
Yeah.
And it's so like the gratitude I feel every day for just being in the spot that I'm in right now, even
Mhm.
though, rent's due,
Yeah.
credit cards are late, you know, I'm in my bedroom that's half unpacked, you know.
Oh my
So
goodness.
yeah.
What would you say like the biggest thing was that you went through that like you feel like, because obviously I feel like there's a lot of heroes' journeys and different cycles and maybe different kinds of versions of Dark Night of the Soul.
Yeah.
Is there one that you feel was like really defining for you, or kind of like the big one, I guess, if you had
Right,
to?
like the chapter closer. Yeah.
Yeah. What
That
what what
was
would that be?
yeah, that was my divorce for me.
Okay. Can you
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about like how it started? Because I just kind of feel like I would love to hear like even leading up to that, like how it was. Like, was it good in the beginning? Was there, just tell me like the time leading up to it, like even about your business as well. If you'd
Yeah.
started it, tell us about that.
Yeah, it's always good in the beginning, right? So
Yeah.
so I because I had this example of relationships, that's the type of relationships I went into. And I
Yeah.
had a lot of heartbreak and a lot of upset because I was being used and just kind of thrown away and by these men that didn't care about me.
Hmm.
They acted like they cared about me and then they showed their true colors and I was like, "No, please love me. I need you to love me." And
Yeah.
I always felt like it was my problem, right? So when I met my ex-husband, I was just getting into going to like pagan festivals and things like that. So I was opening my world, right, to this
Yes.
kind of spiritual beginning where I grew up Southern Baptist.
Oh
So
wow.
yeah,
Yeah. Very
and,
different.
yeah, exactly, and
Was
then,
that was
so
that kind of a journey for you as well to get to
huh,
the point? I'm sure there was some things within yourself that you had to face, right? With beliefs, like that must have
yeah,
been a thing, right?
I I had gotten to the point because I had so much upset in, like, my early 20s and stuff, I was
Yeah.
pretty much agnostic, like, I knew there was something there, but I
Yes.
had detached from the Christian aspect of it,
I see people do
Um,
that a lot where they'll
yeah,
swing to the opposite extreme and they'll be like, I'm agnostic, I'm atheist, like because they're like, if this is what this is, they're like, I want to be the opposite. And then it sounds like for
yeah,
you, you're like, well, what is it for me? How do I just be with this trigger and find what's true for me here with
yeah.
God, source, universe? And so,
I'll tell you what did it. Like the moment where I lost my faith in like Christianity in general, and I was
mhm.
so angry with God in this moment. I had a stillborn in
Oh, wow.
2006,
Oh.
and um,
Did you know
she
before that? Like, did you or did you what did you get all the way to the point of delivering and you didn't know?
no, I got to my anatomy scan halfway through, so I was at
Oh
21
man.
weeks.
Oh gosh. Oh,
Yeah, and my doctor actually, like, scolded me for gaining so much weight since my
are
last
you kidding
appointment.
me?
I had gained, like, 20 pounds, and I just thought it was all baby, like I was popping, right?
Yeah.
And we go to do the anatomy scan, and they found fluid around all of her organs, in
Mm.
her like, her main organs in her digestive system. So they're like,
Oh.
"Okay, we're gonna, put you on bed rest, we're gonna send you for more testing,
Yeah.
just chill out, be okay." You know? This was my very
Yeah.
first pregnancy. This
Oh my
was
gosh.
yeah,
Oh.
and I was engaged at the
So
time.
did did he like deliver this news about so the baby was still there was issues with it, but they were trying to basically
We were
fix it.
trying to
But
figure
wow.
out what exactly it was because they were trying to
Okay.
give me a viability percentage, basically.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
so I had my anatomy scan on Thursday. It's crazy that I remember the way this happened.
Yeah.
Anatomy scan on Thursday. Friday, I went to a specialist and they did a amniocentesis, a bunch of other testing, which was scary. This needle's going in,
Oh, yeah.
so
It's
yeah.
a big
And then
needle. Yeah.
yeah, I was on bed rest all weekend. And then Sunday night, I had to go Monday for another ultrasound. Sunday night, my fiance and I are laying in bed and we're like, we need to name her. We need
Mm.
like now, like it needs to be now. And we agreed on Brooke Ava. And
Mm.
as soon as I said her name out loud, she, like, kicked like crazy, and it was, like, one of the hardest kicks that I had felt to that point,
Oh my
and he
gosh.
was able to feel it. It was the first time he was able to feel it, and then I woke up the next morning and I just knew. As a mother, not even
Mm.
with, like, that maternal instinct already coming in, I just something was just sitting in my soul that she had passed. And then we went my mom took me to the ultrasound and they're like, "Yeah, she has no heartbeat." So,
Mm.
they tried to console me and be like, "She only had a 5% viability." They still have no idea what caused the issue.
Yeah.
Um, but I carried her through the rest of the week, because I didn't want a DNC.
Yeah.
I wanted to birth her. I felt like I needed to birth her.
Okay.
Um, so they put me in the hospital and induced me that Friday, and I was in labor for 38 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. And they had me, super medicated, right? I was like, "I know I'm here, but I don't know what's happening." And,
Mm.
um, yeah, it felt like a dream, right, at
Yeah.
first. And then it's like, all of a sudden you're holding this little not even 2-pound baby. I think she was a pound and 10 ounces, and she was only like 10 inches long.
Wow.
So tiny, tiny. Like I have her footprints on my back and they're like this big.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
Um,
you said that this really shifted for you your views around Christianity and
yes. Yeah.
faith. Like, tell me about that.
So one of the things, like while my fiance and I were having that conversation, laying in bed, picking her name and all that, and I felt her kick, I poured my heart out to God. I said, let this baby live. I want to be its mother. I'm ready to be its mother, all of these things.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen. So I was so
Mm.
angry at God that it just like I stopped going to church. I stopped because it was right before Mother's Day too.
Wow.
And I was trying. I went to church.
Yeah.
My fiance's sister had just had a baby girl the month before. So she brings her
Mm.
newborn to church
Oh.
and I'm like, it's not your fault. It's me. and like had a breakdown and all of these things. And it just was really rough. And I just shut it down.
What was your experience like with people around you? Because I know sometimes it can be hard when you're going through something that's like people's like worst nightmare. Like I feel like sometimes people experience almost like that's really hard for people to be with, those kinds of really sad things. And it can, and so I guess I'm just curious what that was like for you.
It was very lonely. Very lonely. I really didn't have a safe space to talk about it. They tried to put me in like grief counseling, but that wasn't a good fit. And you know, I wasn't at the point yet where you could tell me to box breathe and I'd be okay. I needed some validation that I went through this really traumatic thing. And I didn't get that from anybody around me.
To let it be okay to be like a mess.
Actually, I take that back. The only person that gave me any sort of really just like, I know where you are and I know where your headspace is. So if you need me, come find me, was my grandmother, because she had a miscarriage between my mom and my sister, or her sister.
Wow.
So she understood. She wasn't as far as long as I was, but she understood, you know.
I feel like there's a real gift, and often it can be a surprising person. People that may not be the closest to you, I think during these like really challenging times, they could be someone that's purely an acquaintance that I feel like is kind of like set up by the universe to kind of come in and be your support. And so I guess I'm wondering, now that you're looking back on it, because I know you're like, I felt abandoned by God, like during this time. When you look back on it, like now, how do you feel about like your relationship with the divine or like a higher power?
Yeah, so it took a long time, but my relationship with the divine right now is the strongest it's ever been. And that's, excuse me, I'm gonna call. 1 second.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, I'll come find you in a minute, okay? Sorry, I dropped you too. Oh my gosh.
You're good. Okay. You're good.
Of course, while we're recording, that had to happen. She couldn't come in while it was just you and I talking.
There's a lot, you know, I feel like that's sometimes mom life, and it's also summer right now when we're recording this. So
yeah.
Sometimes the life of that. I'm lucky that my sister was willing to come over today, and I was like able to be like, go play with Nancy. But yes, it's like, it is such a balance, like sometimes like trying to do all the things. Absolutely.
It is. You know? And I homeschool too.
Oh
so
my
it's
gosh,
like,
girl. Okay, so you don't even get a summer break, right?
No, I mean, well, my daughter's 5 and she's in public school, but my son is 13 and he needed the minimal stimulation, right? So he went through a lot of stuff with his father and that side of the family, and also my ex-husband. So there's a lot of healing going on. Like we talked about reparenting while you're parenting. And so I'm healing, accessing trauma that I've never never actually dove into. Like I haven't told that birth story in years. So it's obviously something that the universe is like, hey, there's still more to heal. There's always more to heal.
Honestly, I feel like that's why I love just having sort of like an open format. Like we set an intention together before we had this conversation, but I always like have to just trust where conversations go, because I feel like it might seem like an offshoot, but it's absolutely interrelated or interconnected to
exactly.
the message.
That's how I run my what?
It's connected to the energy that you bring and the message that you bring.
Yeah. That's how I run my coaching sessions. Is like we have an intention for the 5-pack you bought or the 10-pack you bought, right? But we're going to come in and I tell them this during like our discovery call, is I'm going to show up fully as myself. So you therefore have permission to show up fully as yourself. That could be hot mess mom, that could be exhausted, that could be on your A game, that could be reliving a heartbreak, whatever it is. Like, and I tell my clients, if you just need somebody to witness you cry for an hour, and that's all we do, and that's we don't talk, you just have a safe space to let it out, then my job's done. I'm doing what I was put here to do.
a similar experience with clients that like oftentimes I'll get clients that are like, oh my gosh, I never really cry. But talking to you, I don't know why I'm crying. And it's like, well, energetically, there's just something about, I think there's so many healers out there that are also coaches that there's something in their energy and the way that they show up with this like loving heart for people that people like the client is going to have a reaction to that energy and they're going to feel something. They're going to remember something. It's just kind of like what happens. But do you have that a lot where people are surprised that they're crying or they don't usually cry and it just something deep comes up and they're like, I don't know where this is coming from.
I have a client that's been with me since the beginning. And so when in 2020, when I started my business, she was my first client and she'll probably be my last client. She's amazing. But it's exactly that. Like she puts on this tough exterior and then she gets on the call with me and I'm like, what's going on? You know, because you can just tell.
You could
you see it in her face. You can tell she's exhausted. And, you know, she's going through the divorce and single mom thing too. So it's just that kind of energy of I can lay it all down, you know.
Can I ask you, like, when you went through your divorce, like, so you had the business already going when you got divorced? Okay, so that was a product afterwards. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me, like, when even without the business, like, it's a really tough thing because you are still being a parent, you are still responsible financially, trying to put a whole new life together.
Yeah.
What do you think was like the thing that helped you the most during that time?
I think just kind of that's when I started following the breadcrumbs.
Okay.
That's when I was really like, I'm really frustrated with my job. I want to throw my laptop across the room every day. I was working for corporate in regulatory compliance.
Yeah.
Very technical, very high level decision making type work.
Okay.
And my brain, honestly, like the mental fatigue from everything that was going on, my job, I was completely lost.
Yeah.
I came back from maternity leave from my daughter, and it was like the entire business had changed. I had to relearn everything. And then a year and a half later, getting divorced and then having all of that while I'm still trying to acclimate to, you know, this changed role and stuff. I was so stressed. And COVID, right? It was right during COVID.
Okay. So it was like during 2020. Okay.
Yeah. So we, my ex-husband and I split in November of 2019. That's when we moved in with my best friend. So yeah, and that had to have been the most divine timing because if we had gone into COVID together, it would not have ended well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not ashamed to say that like I wouldn't be here right now. And my kids would be in his custody and that's like the worst thing I can think of happening. You know. So
what did you do to support yourself through those times? Like what's the thing that looking back you felt like really gave you like the resilience or the strength that you needed that day to go on or allowed you to like feel the feels and like still move forward and be a mom and make money?
A lot of it comes from the forced routine that people with childhood trauma have, that you push it all down and you just keep going, right? But it catches up with you. So that was a lot of it. A lot of it was just like running on fumes, getting stuff done, you know, and then passing out at the end of the night, too tired to worry about anything, right?
Did you have a breaking point where that wasn't working anymore?
That's when I almost threw my laptop across the room.
I got something. What happened at that point? Like, where you're like, enough is enough.
You know, we're working at home. We're doing school from home. It's all at home, you know, and I'm trying to still keep this corporate 8 to 5, you know, life, plus make sure he's doing his schoolwork, you know, for online school and everything. And then I got a really nasty email from someone, from like a vendor or something. And I was just like, you know what? Like, and then the next email I got was something from HR saying that if you've been affected by COVID and my divorce
Mhm.
fell into the requirements,
Yeah.
that you could pull out your 401k. You could pull out money from your 401k.
Wow.
And I was like, sold. So I
Wow.
immediately filled that out. I mean, seriously, the next email, I was like picking up my laptop, and it
Like,
dinged.
thank goodness that didn't fall
And
through this across
yeah,
the
and I was like, okay, we're safe.
room.
Because it wasn't my laptop, it was the company's. I would have had to pay for it. But yeah, so I withdrew my 401k and quit my
Wow.
job.
See,
And
the point I think that I want to raise here is that you didn't have a plan. When you left your
no,
marriage, you did not have a plan. Because so many people that I see that are not leaving their marriages, that are in really bad situations, they don't leave because they don't know how they're going to do it financially. But none of us really
yeah,
do. Like, I think there's probably, that would be the minority, that people just have this plan. And so it is like really leaping. I mean, but what was it for you that made you know that you needed to like leave that relationship? Was there some things that really were like you're like, I'm not accepting this in my life? Like, what was it?
yeah, yeah. So after I got pregnant with my daughter, that's when kind of the control and the narcissism and the mental and not physical with me, but mental and physical abuse in my family started happening from my ex-husband.
Okay.
And a lot of things were going on behind my back that I didn't know of. Um, outside relationships,
Mm,
experiences with my son, those kinds of things. And we had moved from, I was fighting it, I was raging through it. I was a nightmare every day because I'd come home from work and dive right into stress, and I
yeah.
had no break from it.
Yeah.
Um, and we ended up moving from a three-bedroom house to a camper because he wanted to take a job as a farmhand. And they had just opened this farm. They were gonna be building a farmhand's house. So, like, few months, 6 months to a year in the camper, and then we'll be in the house. Like, there's a light at
Yeah.
the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
So, we we moved from the house to the camper to a smaller camper, and this is me, my husband, my 2 kids, and 2 dogs at
Wow.
the time. And then I
How
came
old were
home
your kids
from
at that time?
at that time, my daughter was 18 months and my son had just turned 9.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um, and my husband was gone for the day, and the farm owner came over and was like, "Hey, can you know, my friend's gonna watch your kids. Can you come over and talk to us?" I'm like, "Okay, why am I the one getting fired?" Right? So come to find out, he had been stealing money and not doing the things that he was supposed to be doing. He was not working while I was at work. He was like staying in the
Wow.
camper. And I was like, okay, I'll talk to him when he gets home. Well, you guys have to be out by the end of the month. I'm sorry it's Thanksgiving, but
Mm.
yeah, you have to be out.
So that's how you kind of found out about what
Yeah.
was going on. Okay.
So
Okay.
much, so much going on that I just was not privy to because I was so in my head just trying to stay afloat.
Well, that's a lot. Like, I feel like you were doing the best you could.
Yeah.
Wow. And so, did you end up leaving right after that, or was there other things that happened before it
Yeah,
was like time for you to be like, this is enough?
yeah. I tried to lay down and take a nap, trying like, okay, he's gonna be home, tomorrow morning or whatever. I'll talk to him
Hmm.
about it then, give me the night to cool off. And I just was getting like increasingly mad with each breath. Like
Mm,
every time I would try to go to sleep, I would just get more and more angry. And
yeah.
so I finally called him and I was like, "Hey, I'm coming to you. We're gonna switch cars and I'm gonna take the kids to my friend's house for the weekend." It was only supposed to
Right.
be a weekend. It was just like, I need to clear
Okay.
my head. And
Okay.
that way you can do your thing, I'll do my thing, you
Okay.
know.
I love that you just like trusted the first step, that you were like, this is just what feels right. I'm going to make a
Yeah.
change. So I love that. Okay.
Yeah. My
And
kids and
then,
I are not safe here. So I need to
mm,
go somewhere that I know I'm safe.
yes. And so
That
you
was
went to your
the
friend's house
mhm.
thinking it was going to be for the weekend. And then what happened
Yeah.
next?
Her and I were sitting and talking in the bedroom that my kids and I eventually moved into.
Yeah.
Um, and I was filling her in on everything that had happened because she's known my ex for a long time too, longer than
Yeah.
me. And she was just like, if you guys need a place to stay, you're welcome here as long as you need to. We'll make it work. And it was that kind of I got you energy and big sister energy
Yeah.
that apparently I needed, because I woke up the next morning and I was like, I'm done. We're done. Yeah. I started planning out how the pack and play was going to fit in the bedroom and how I was going to work from home and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And by Tuesday, I had moved completely off the farm and we
Wow.
put everything into a storage unit. Yeah. And then eventually, I didn't want to pay for the storage unit anymore.
Yeah.
So I went and pulled out basically my sentimentals and stuff from high school, stuff from my family, and moved from a 10 by 10 to a 5 by 5 by 5 storage locker.
Wow. Wow.
And then, whatever else we had in the bedroom at my
Yeah.
friend's house. So I really like rebuilt from scratch.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
And I wonder if you can kind of just share, like, I'm just kind of like thinking, I feel like I have so many questions that sometimes it's hard to be like, just let's
Which
focus
one?
on one. Yeah. What do I want to ask you? Yeah. I guess so. You move out, like you leave, which I feel like is exciting. Oh, I know what I was going to say. With you saying your friend being like really crucial. Like you're like, my friend,
Yeah.
my best friend, like saved my life. Like we stayed with her, we lived with her. Like, I think one of the things that's important is that sometimes people fully like isolate themselves from all of their relationships and their friendships. And so I guess like, what's your view on that, just based on the experience that you've had? Because people don't often feel like when things begin that they're going to need it. And sometimes people just like, or even maybe their relationship pulls them away from those relationships.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the isolation. I wasn't allowed to hang out with any of my friends, even mutual friends, unless like he was
Really?
there. Yeah, I
Wow.
wasn't. He had problems with pretty much everybody in my family, so I wasn't talking to any of them. And it just I don't even remember what my best friend and his fight was about, but like I was like, oh, I'm going to take my husband's side because that's what a good wife does.
Oh, wow.
And walked away from that friendship. And that's, we didn't talk for, about a year. And
Wow.
I texted her and I was like, can I bring can the kids and I stay with you for the weekend? I think I'm leaving.
Wow.
And she was like, holy shit. Yeah. Come on. So.
What was life like for you afterwards in that first year, like after the divorce?
Yeah, it was intense because it took us about a year to get just under a year. I was the one filing everything. I was the one doing everything.
That's a lot.
Fully got divorced by myself, like on Zoom in my living room alone.
Wow.
Like I hung up the call and I was like, what now? Like, what do I do? And of course I called my best friend and she Ubered me dinner on like a celebratory cake. It was awesome. But yeah. But yeah, it was reconnecting with these friends and especially my family, that I had isolated from, and building and learning. I had to relearn, and I'm still relearning what I actually like versus what my partner likes, and kind of molding into that.
It's funny, I was talking about this with my partner today, and I was saying that I think the majority of relationships and what we've grown up like seeing is to like become what your partner needs, even that like happy wife, happy life thing. It's like become what they need. Forget about your own needs and just like fully devote to this other person. But then it does feel like eventually it's like, also I feel like people get triggered or they get angry and then they just shove that energy somewhere. And I feel like the other path is that relationships are going to be triggering. I think that they're one of the most healing kinds of like relationships in our life, like, right? But like they're going to trigger you. And it's like, if you deal with each of those triggers, like you'll grow stronger. You can come into deeper intimacy and connection. But like the whole like stuffing it away somewhere, I feel like it's like a huge bomb that goes off for people at some point in those relationships where
that's exactly what happened.
Come out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the thing, like, you know, he got into this energy of like, you're the one that left me, you know, I'm the one that's suffering because you made this choice.
Me. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Everything was on me. Everything was on me. If he screwed up, it was my fault because I didn't do XYZ.
Yeah.
You know, if the kids were misbehaving, it was my fault because I'm a crappy mom. You know, and he hated anytime I talked about anything feminist. What was that?
Yeah, you're the one that broke up this family. Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're the one keeping me from my kids. No. You're the one that hasn't called them. You're the one that, you know, has plans every weekend and can't spend family time.
Yeah.
You know.
Tell me,
it got nasty for a little bit.
I do feel like I know I judged myself for not being like a good enough mom, like during that time, or a good enough like provider. Cause there was times where like, for me, like things would maybe get all the way to the 17th of the month till I would figure out how to pay my rent, right? Where I would get like eviction notices and I'm like, I felt like terrible, right? Like like I felt like it triggered so much shadow work in me of how I saw my value, like for needing to take up space for my own needs. But like there was so much judgment that I had. And I'm sure that you're on that path. I guess I'm just wondering, is there something that you would want to acknowledge that past version of you for like how well she did, which maybe would have been hard for you to see at the time?
Yeah. That hits. Yeah. I want to thank her for those moments of courage and not giving up and always having faith that even if it was literally the size of a sprinkle, you know, I kept that little sprinkle of faith, right? Knowing that there was so many more things coming. And I learned how, and this is something that I'm still working on and I teach, is I learned how to live in cycles. And that came from working with a self-love coach. That was kind of my journey into this industry. And I was like, I love what you do and I think I could help, and let's, you know, all of that. So that it was working with her, really digging into my shadow work, learning what shadow work is, you know, all of that, doing it for myself before I ever tried to do it for anybody else. And then I fell into this this energetic healing modality called womb light. And that is it was created by a friend of mine, and it combines womb healing with different forms of Reiki and EFT, like tapping and neuro-linguistic programming. It's all of this, all to support the entire process of what she calls the momomorphosis. So from conception to 4th trimester. And I took it, and it wasn't really my jam to necessarily work on that. Like, of course I want to support women through these amazing moments in their life. But for me, it was the healing. It was the releasing of the trauma. And it's so funny because anytime I do healing work, whether it's for myself or somebody else, I bleed. Even if it's just a little bit and it's totally not on my cycle. It's
there's an energetic that you're pulling from that, your womb space.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like this is what inspired your business. Like what actually kind of, like you had this experience with a like a healer and a guide, and then that inspired you to start your business.
Hey, I'm still on the call. Give me a few more minutes.
We'll be done soon. We're gonna aim for 5 minutes.
They're ready to go grocery shopping.
Yes.
But I'm sorry.
Tell me how no, it's totally fine. Yeah, I guess I just want you to share like how it like inspired you and how like all the energy of all these things that you've shared like turned into what you created in your business.
Yeah. So I knew, you know, I pulled out my 401k, I gave my notice, And this really crazy alignment happened where I got the deposit, I had my last day of work, and my divorce was finalized all within the same week.
Wow.
And then
Wow.
my son turned 10 at the end of that week.
Wow.
And I was like, hold on, there's there's something here. Like this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
What's going on? So I just kind of sat with it for about a month. And the weekend of like Thanksgiving weekend that year, I launched Conjured Glow.
Wow.
And it started as mostly womb work, right? Because
Yeah.
that's what I had been trained in.
Yeah.
And then it's grown to tarot readings, coaching, books, workbooks, the Medusa project. Like it's all just letting it bloom, right?
Yes.
And just kind of
There
following
is
it
an
where it goes.
unfolding. Yeah, there is an unfolding with these businesses. And I've been seeing this, like, I feel like in our collective, because I definitely feel like you and I are like a part of a
Yeah,
similar collective,
very
that
much
there's
so.
it's an entrepreneurial person that's like also a creative, but there's also like this healing work that they do. But it almost feels like it's really fueled by them basically just coming into deeper contact with like the truth of who they are, and
Yep.
like diving into the universe within themselves and like loving that, and then basically like bringing that into their work, creating things that hold that energy. So I guess I'm just
Mhm.
curious about your thoughts. Like, do you also see that this is kind of like an archetype where there's many of us that are kind of like in this similar place with like life
Yeah.
experiences, types of business?
Yeah, I feel like there is this collective of women who have been through the trenches, who have
Mm-hmm.
been through the fire. They survived, and now they're in a position of safety to be
Mm-hmm.
able, like safety within themselves, to be
Yeah.
able to carry buckets of water back, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I feel I am, and where I feel like the women I'm connecting with, like you and other,
Mm-hmm.
tarot readers and things like that, that's kind of where we are. That's the level we're at.
Yep.
Excuse me. And we're speaking to women who are in similar situations that we were 2-3 years ago. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's kind of the distance between where I needed help and where I am
Yeah.
now.
What
Sorry.
I guess I'm curious, what this is an interesting thing, like, because we were talking about the womb. What if you felt like there was a specific chakra that like your work mostly hit on the most? Like, what do you think yours would be?
Oh,
It might be
sacral and
a
root.
you.
Yeah.
Okay. I was thinking that mine is mostly the voice chakra. And so I
Your
kind of
throat
feel
chakra,
like,
the one that's killing
yeah,
me right now?
expression. Yeah, because I was wondering, I was like, I wonder if that's like my energy, because I feel like I'm really about like, okay, you have an understanding of this. Now let's go express this. Like, let's
Yeah.
talk about it. Let's let people see you like this. And so,
I this last, like, from May's full moon to
Mhm.
this last full moon and this last week, I've been doing so much throat chakra clearing, like, to the
Mm,
point that I even got strep. Like, that's
wow.
my kid when,
Totally.
one of my kids
Woo.
brought home a virus. Everybody in
Oh,
the house had it for, like, 48 hours, and then here I am with a week where my tonsils are almost touching, right?
so you're
So
in
I
that
really
part of
couldn't talk.
your path of probably clearing out and rebuilding,
Yeah, and
probably
I
like,
heard it's
mhm.
funny because while my voice was gone, like, this is recent, so I'm still
Yeah,
catch
yeah.
this tickle has been happening every time, like,
Oh, yeah.
I get to a point where it's like, "Okay, you've" not like you've said what you need to say, but it's weird. It's weird when it's happening.
It happens to me sometimes where it will just kind of like happen out of the blue in something, or if I feel like uncomfortable about something and there's like resistance in me, or I don't know, there's times where it's always hard to pinpoint like why, and sometimes it is just the body stuff that our body's like healing from something. But I
Yeah.
do have that happen to me sometimes, and I guess I've learned sometimes to notice. I'm sure you're like this too. If something starts to happen, that sometimes something will start going off in your body, then to
Yep.
just trigger you to like ask the other person, like, oh, like, what is this?
It's like arthritis when your joints hurt in the rain or when there's rain coming. That's kinda how I feel like. I mean, I have arthritis, so I feel that. And,
Mm,
that's another thing that's really common with, people like us too in this collective, is that we have chronic illness. And
mm,
a lot of that is so much stored trauma. And I
yes.
I noticed that when I started doing all this healing, my problems actually got worse. in this, because it was stuff purging out.
Yes.
So that's what I
I've
feel like
gotten
this
a
class
lot of
is.
channeled messages of the body having a lot of things that are coming up that, like, basically they're saying that our consciousness has risen and that our
Yep.
body has to be brought into alignment with it. And that kind of like one by one, something will flare up, or it
Yep.
might be like an old injury that you're feeling. And that through the channeling, it basically said like one by one, you're releasing these things that have been stored or anchored in the body, and basically allowing it to allow your body to kind of keep up with what's happening here. Because I think for people in our collective, our body is like the vehicle of expression. So if our
Yep.
consciousness is at one frequency, our body has to be able to keep up with that. And so I do feel like I often see that is like the consciousness or some kind of thing will be healed, and then it, like the body will have its turn. And that's why one of the reasons I tell people that dancing for me was like really huge in my divorce is that I felt like I had so much like emotion, and I felt like I would just go into like the garage where I could be by myself, like before I had moved out. And I would like the perfect, like the music was like an oracle. It would be these perfect songs I had never heard.
It's
that
a
were hitting
meditation,
on,
right?
yeah, like the exact energy, and I would cry, or I would be like just angrily like thresh. I looked like a crazy person, literally.
I
But it
remember
felt
seeing your videos and stuff, and it was so inspiring. And I do a lot of that too, where I actually got so far away from dancing. Dance was like one of
like,
those things that I could kind of anchor into my entire childhood. You know,
yeah,
from like 3rd grade on, I was dancing, you
yeah.
know, or cheerleading or
Wow,
color guard.
you have like a performer, yeah, yeah. I was
Yeah,
a church
yeah.
twirler, yeah.
And even at the festival that I now go to, that I was going to, you know, I started going to 11 years ago now. Geez.
Yeah.
Um, I was hosting rituals, you know, holding rituals where we were dancing to tell the story. We were dancing to open and close
Wow.
the circle. And it was such a beautiful thing. And when I went through my divorce, I froze. I was
Mm,
so scared to move because
wow.
I knew
You knew
innately
that.
in my gut
Oh, yeah, it was
what
gonna be
was
a
going to come
lot,
out.
like a volcano. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah,
So like that's a lot of
yeah.
things that this first coach, her name's Aylin Kaylee. That's one of the first things she did with me was
Movement.
like we would just sit. She would put on music, and we would just sit on a call and wiggle and talk and, you know, move our bodies, and it got
This
me
is
more
so
comfortable.
confirming, I feel like for me as
Yeah.
well, in the direction that I'm moving, because I feel like I want to bring in more playful performance, because I do feel like we're healing the inner child, and we're bringing
Yes.
back in that part of us that has been really shut down and not feeling safe to come out. And it's such an important aspect. I feel like there's like the shadow work side, and then there's this like little child that we're like scooping up and being like, remember how to play and how to like create and just like
Yeah.
be.
We did. I led a main ritual a couple years ago that was totally healing inner child. It was a Beltane ritual, so lots of fun and frivolity and, you know, all of that going on. And the 4 of us that were doing the ritual all showed up in pigtails and tutus that we made,
I
and
love
we
it.
had like glow sticks and bubbles, and I did this guided meditation, and then when you came out of it, like the whole air was full of bubbles because we had bubble machines.
I love it.
And then we did the chicken dance. And it was so I loved it, and I got a little negative feedback because it's not traditional, right? You
Ah,
know?
I love
But
it. I
it was totally
celebrate
not
that.
traditional, but it was like a coaching session for me, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, I love it so
And
much.
and I got a lot of compliments from people my age and
Mhm.
younger that are like, "That really resonated. Thank
Yes.
you know, that was so cool, like, I wanna see more of that."
Well, I think
So,
that our
yeah.
generation almost needs things to be taken out of the conventional, you have to do it this
Yes.
way path. Like, we need that. So I love that.
We need that permission.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
have, like, because I know that we are starting to go beyond what we said, because we talked
What
about,
we agreed to.
it's going to be, we could talk forever. I could
Oh,
tell.
yeah.
The last question, two questions that I have. The first one is, what would be the advice to the woman, or maybe the man as well, that's like maybe going through this where they're trying to kind of build up like the courage to leave, or they're not sure and they're kind of like right at the brink of this? Like, what would you want to say to them right now?
One foot in front of the other.
Mm-hmm.
Deep breath and a step. Deep breath and a step. You don't have to figure it all out at once.
Yeah.
You can just know that you need to leave And even just kind of leaving the physical space of your home and going like and sitting in nature for a
Yeah.
little bit,
Changing your environment.
changing the environment. I'm a very big fan of sticking my toes in the dirt, you know.
Mm. Yes.
I'm barefoot as much as possible.
Yeah.
And that's what that would be my advice. One foot in front of the other, deep breaths.
You
Yeah.
don't have to have it all figured out. You're just going to figure out the next thing and then the next thing
Yeah.
after that. And that's enough.
Yep. Follow the breadcrumbs.
Yeah. And I'd say for you as well to notice the people that show up in your life, like unexpected,
Yes.
like your best friend, like your grandmother, that you didn't know that you would have the support, but the support showed up.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if the support was going to return. Like if I wasn't sure if I had completely burned that bridge. And that
Mm.
was a huge fear of mine. Like even just calling my grandmother to be like, hey, this is what's going on.
I'd
It was
imagine
so hard for me to make that phone call.
your faith in like the universe, God source, like probably was also, I'm sure,
Oh,
restored. Like you're
and
like, I am always protected, even if it changes, right?
yeah, and that's actually something that I haven't really identified with until recently, probably the last 6 months, coming out of this deep depression that I had over the holidays. It was
Yeah.
like, no, I'm fully supported.
Mhm.
I'm fully resourced. All I have to do is tap into it. And that's
Yes.
when I started doing noticing things like I'm already independent. I'm
Yes.
already, time independent and all of these things that I've always wanted to do. I've always had some kind of like digital nomad goal in my life.
Yes.
Like when it was just me and my son, we were gonna rent an RV and like or like live on the RV and just travel, and I would work from we just see the world. And
Yeah.
that's still like so deep in my soul that I want to do. And now it's it's so close to being a reality, you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
So,
Mm. Would
yeah.
you tell people how to find you, how to
Yeah.
interact with you, and also like about the Medusa project and how they can get involved in that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I put my tag or my handle in on the
Perfect.
screen. So Conjure Glow, that's Facebook and Instagram. And then you can click my link tree from there. And that has all of the links. That's how you join the Medusa project. That's how you request to
Perfect.
work with me. That's how you get access to my books and all the podcasts I've been on. So like this interview will be on there too.
Yes.
And that's really it, and you can access all my socials from my link tree. With the
Perfect.
Medusa project, yeah, I'm looking for the first book is gonna be 50 letters.
Okay.
Um, and I have 6 right now, and we just
Mm.
started about a week ago.
Okay,
So, it's
great.
happening, like, I
No,
feel it,
yeah.
like, the snowball is starting,
I think I
and
need to get involved in that. I love that so much.
yeah, and it's really cool because I'm gonna do a releasing ceremony. Every time a
Wow.
book is published, I'm gonna print out the letters and do a live stream for
Oh,
people
I love
to take
it.
part of this release of energy.
I
And I
love it
feel
so
like you
much.
don't need I think the whole point of the Medusa project in and of itself is for women to understand and accept that closure doesn't need to involve the other person.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can put it out into the universe, and let them
Release
handle
it
it.
from yourself. You don't, it doesn't have to be healed with the other
It
person.
doesn't it doesn't have to lay on you anymore,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and that's kind of what, like, the musing series that I'm writing, that's exactly what that
Mhm.
is. That's just honestly, it's pretty much my journal from the last couple years,
I love
and I
it.
was just like, "No, I'm not the only one going through this,
Mm-hmm.
so I need to put this out in the world. I need to be that person, that energy that lets people know it's okay," you know?
I I feel like that gives me a confirmation as well because I feel like the stuff that I channel through for myself that I ask for, I've been kind of guided to just share that because it's not
Mhm.
just me that's experiencing it. And so there's times when I'm just like, is this weird? I was like, does this benefit other people? Like I asked myself that question. I was like, how is my story like or me talking about myself going to benefit someone else? Because I feel like
Right.
a part of me has been so taught to just like worry about others, and I'm like, this is a part of just how it is. This is I'm not alone in this. You're not alone in your experience.
Right.
And someone out there needs to hear exactly that. And so I love that you're putting that into the world. And thanks for giving me that confirmation as
Yeah,
well.
of course.
thank you so much for just being so open and going to like all the different places that we went today and like sharing your whole heart with us. I really appreciate
Thank
you.
you.
And
Thank you.
I'm so grateful that I finally got to meet you, because I feel
right
like,
that we connected.
yeah, like it's different. It's like I see so many of your things and I like really like reading all of your posts, and sometimes you just don't even get to really talk to some of the people that you follow online. So I'm grateful for being connected.
That's confirmation for me too, because I've just energetically been feeling like cloaked lately. Not even like technology shadow banned, but like, okay, I'm putting things out there. I'm planting seeds, but eventually the right people will see it. So
The right people.
it's this radical trust that I've developed over the last couple of years. Yeah.
I love it. I feel like we might have to have a separate conversation with like even more business stuff, because we were riffing on a lot of things at some point, but I just feel like there's so many things business wise that I think that we have a different perspective on between business and creativity and gifts. I'm going to let you get to the store. And I think that this is totally a lot for people to consume in one listen, but thank you, Jess.
Yeah. If I don't go buy these kids snacks, they're going to
go get them their snacks. Yes. They need those snacks, girl.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jess. Have a good rest of your week. I appreciate you. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks. You too. This has been wonderful.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.